Frank Sinatra said, "The best revenge is massive success." What's a real-life example of this? The guy who invented Ring cameras went on Shark Tank and was rejected by everyone. They all thought it would fail. Will you know the rest? Ron McNair had the police called on him when he was little because he was black and reading in a library. He grew up to be an astronaut, and the library he was kicked out of was later named after him. Michael J. Fox has a great story about when he started out. Some big wheel at the network didn't like him for the role of Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. He was too short, not cute, not heartthrob enough. You're never going to see his face on a lunchbox. But the producer cast him anyway, and the show shot to #1 and stayed there. Fox sent him a Family Ties lunchbox with his face on it, and then Back to the Future 1, 2, 3 lunch boxes. Aaron French, chef-owner of restaurant The Lost Kitchen in rural Maine, co-owned a restaurant in the town of Belfast with her husband. A very tumultuous relationship ended with him changing the locks on the building with all of her equipment inside. She licked her wounds, leased space in an old mill building in her tiny hometown of Freedom, and built from the ground one of the best restaurants in the country. With a coveted reservation that is fabled for its difficulty to get a table. Has her own multi-season documentary on TV and is absolutely killing it in the culinary world now. Jennifer Hudson lost American Idol and became more successful than the winner. When Lady Gaga was in college, some of her classmates had a Facebook group called Stephanie Germanotta. You'll never be famous. Pretty sure she proved them wrong. Brendan Fraser getting the Oscar this year after being blacklisted from Hollywood for over a decade for speaking out about being sexually assaulted. Nothing to do with the question asked. But my favorite Sinatra story is him asking a waiter what's the biggest tip he ever received. $200, Mr. Sinatra. Yeah. Well, here's $300. By the way, kid, who gave you a $200 tip? You, Mr. Sinatra. In the 1960s, Ford wanted to buy Ferrari. Just before they closed the deal, Ferrari slammed the door on them and let themselves be bought by Fiat. Ford then designed an entirely new supercar, beat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans from 19,661,969. And Ferrari hasn't won that race since against any other car manufacturer. And for the icing on the cake, 50 years later, Ford entered again after not competing since the 70s. And won again. Blockbuster laughed baby Netflix out of the room with their idea. Then later, grown-up Netflix killed Blockbuster. Sony and Nintendo were working on a console together before the GameCube came out, intending to utilize Nintendo's gaming hardware combined with Sony's sound tech to create games with more immersive sound capabilities than have been seen before. Partway through development, Nintendo backed out of the deal, which, if you're not aware of Japanese business etiquette, is kind of a dick move. Nintendo backed out to work with Philips to put Nintendo games on the CDI, which resulted in the worst received Nintendo games of all time. Sony, out of spite, went on to make the PlayStation one of the best-selling consoles in gaming history, and cement themselves as a massive player in the console wars to this day. David Tepper, after being passed on for partner multiple times at Goldman Sachs, decided to go work for himself. A few decades later he bought his ex-boss's house, John Corzine, in the Hamptons for $43 million. He then proceeded to demolish the thing and put up an even more expensive mansion. Groups of guitars are on the way out, a recording executive at Decca told the Beatles in 1962. We don't like their sound. Groups of guitars are on the way out. Harlan Ellison sent every writing award he received to one of his old professors that said he'd never be successful. The TV networks who turned down showing Breaking Bad on their networks. AMC picked it up and never looked back. My ex was going to divorce me after I retired to try and get a percentage of my retirement pay. Evidently this had been a plan for a while. Her best friend sent me screenshots of her plan and I used it for my divorce. She got nothing. I'm happily married to my best friend. Financially stable. With all the free time I could want. Edit. A word. Guy in my class in middle school was always sleeping from staying up late playing Halo 2. He was really good. Like travel to tournaments and win them on weekends good. The teacher said, enjoy your video games now because you'll be flipping burgers for life. He bought himself and his parents' houses at 19 from YouTube, streaming money. I worked as CFO for a private company. And after 5 years of poor ownership and family meddling I was let go with no notice or severance. While they owed me tens of thousands of dollars in back pay, expenses, revenue share etc. I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I won my lawsuit and have a judgment against him and his company which I know I will never collect. 7 years later I started my own company in the same competitive space. Following his most recent divorce he's about $2.7 million in debt. My company was just valued at $100 million as we move into our 4th year. Sports commentators criticized Lamar Jackson for holding on the Ravens and said that he'd never be able to get a deal done without an agent. As of a few hours ago, he signed a new contract worth $260 million. He's now the highest paid player in NFL history. Post Malone becoming absurdly famous for writing songs about a girl that left him.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.